Hello again, Steve here, and I wanted to make a few comments about getting people, and one of those people is ourselves, to listen to ourselves. Because isn't it important? I mean, isn't it okay? Let's flip it around. Isn't it kind of annoying sometimes when we're talking for a while and we notice nobody's listening? Yeah, it can be annoying, and it can also be very annoying. I find that when I say to myself I'm going to do something and then I don't do it, so that's a bit of a fall down as well, for sure. And I'm going to make the case here today that content is very important. Somebody once used this analogy. It might be Gary Halbert. I think he was talking about something else, but the analogy I took from it was that basically when we put something forward, we have contents and then we have the delivery vehicle. So think of a ballistic missile, right? It is a delivery vehicle. And then if you're fighting a war, you want your projectile to go over there, but you want it to deliver something. You want it to deliver some destruction, and that's not what we're talking about here. But we think of the content or a ship, right? You send a ship out to sea full of cargo. It's the delivery vehicle, and the cargo is what we want to get over there, right? And the content of what it is that we're saying very often, especially if we're trying to put across information. Humor may be just for the sake of humor, slightly different, but it still is there. But if we're trying to put across some content, then we hope that it actually gets delivered. Like so often when we put something out, you may have noticed before, people are not listening. That's like sending a ship out to sea and it sinks. I mean, it's not getting there. It's not doing what we sent it out to do, right? And it's not that maybe people don't want to hear it. I mean, this is sort of like trying to land our ship. We didn't get to the right port. It's like just a beach somewhere, and it's a disaster, right? And so uh, I think that there's a couple of things that can be said here. I recently wrote a little booklet. It's called Kick-Ass Confidence Through Public Speaking, and I'm going to be doing a little presentation on that this evening, actually. And one of the things that I got from some other teacher in this field, and it makes sense because I've seen it work for me in my life as well, not just on a stage but talking to kids and so on. If we can somehow elevate the importance of what it is that we're saying to people, almost to like if we can get the purpose as to why we're doing this, sort of it begins to answer the question in our minds at least, why listen to me, right? Because if we can't even answer that for ourselves, it's pretty hard for other people to answer it, I think. But if we can elevate the importance of what we're saying to the level of life saving in a way, right? Then we have something that's very important to do. We're on a mission, basically. And I use the example in that little booklet that I wrote of, say, for example, you're talking to some friends, and just hypothetically, you found out through the grapevine or whatever that your friend's car is bugged with a bomb in such a way that when he or she turns the key, the car is going to blow up. Well, you have at that point a very deep responsibility, right? To let that person know and to make sure nothing really, and make sure that other people know that need to know in order to diffuse that thing to not injure other people as well. Very, very high level of importance. So you can see right there that you have this high level of importance to the level of life saving. And at that point, the content is extremely valuable. It doesn't really matter at that point how you deliver it as long as you deliver it. I'm going to get into delivery systems later, but this is why I'm saying if we can focus on the content as being almost being life saving in a way, because everybody has problems that they want solving. And if we can somehow get our communication geared for that, whether we're talking to friends and so on, we can listen, find out what the problems are, and we can address them. When we're addressing real problems, then that content really, really matters. It doesn't matter so much how we say it. Here's another example that I may have said before. this old guy, Gary Halbert, who used to teach, they used to call him the Prince of Print because he was the guy who could write a sales letter. And if you could pay him enough money, he was going to sell oogobs of whatever it is you were selling. This guy was good. And he once talked about, this is where I learned about the elevating things to the level of life-saving. Because he used the example of if you had your friend's Irish sweepstake ticket, like you had a lottery ticket that your friend had entrusted you to keep because he was going away, you had to check it or whatever, and you found out that it was worth several $1,000,000. If you go to tell that guy, he doesn't care if you use clever rhetoric or proper grammar, proper pauses, syntax, whatever, as long as he could understand it. You see, because the value of that for him is so high. It is life-saving in a way because the reason he bought that. I don't necessarily mean that it's going to save his life as literally he was going to die. But a lot of times people are wanting saving from their problems. And obviously if somebody's buying a lottery ticket in the hope of winning $1,000,000, they've got things that they want saving from, that they perceive somehow this is going to save them from it in a way, right? So it doesn't really matter if we can somehow elevate the importance of what we're saying in the minds and ears and hearts and so on of those who are listening to us, including ourselves. Then we can focus in on the quality of that, and that how close we can figure out the problem that's going on. If we can identify the problem and provide information to address that problem, we're so much more down the road there. The challenge is, though, is that so often we perceive a problem, or we see a problem very clearly, like a train wreck, basically, in somebody's life, but they don't see it, and they don't want to be convinced. Say, for example, we're trying to teach a child about the danger of playing near the stove. They don't have a concept of a cauldron of hot water landing on top of them. That to them is non-existent. So they go grabbing at things and what have you. We really have to, well, in some cases we just got to build gates and so on, but we have to use other word pictures and so on. If the kid was stung by a bee, and we can get them to remember the bee and how much it hurt, well, imagine if there was 1,000 bees that stung you. So this would be a use of a form of rhetoric to not directly address. We're suspending that kid's sense of reality to the boiling cauldron of water and putting it onto something else and allowing that kid to experience something in their own imagination. We're suspending their reality in the moment, and we're going into imagination, into a very powerful story. And this is why stories are so powerful when we're trying to convince people or convince ourselves about things that we won't otherwise gravitate towards naturally through the rational sense. And yeah, because sometimes people are just very irrational, as kids are, and you know, well, lots of adults are. We all are at times irrational, right? And so this is where we get into the delivery method when we're talking. And this is where, public speaking training comes in, and confidence training and all this sort of thing. Because when we can get to use forms of humor, I mean, think of George Carlin. I mean, the guy was basically like a sort of, you almost say he's a political philosopher of some sort, but he used humor to get through because so many people are so brainwashed about believing, lies, and he was trying to use humor to get to points that he couldn't get to. And this has been used throughout the ages. Shakespeare used this and so on, because lots of times in history you couldn't talk about, dangerous to talk about reality, right? Look at Assange now. He's basically been in jail for the longest time. He's going to be in jail again, not because he did anything wrong. No, because he probably did a lot of good stuff. But that can be very dangerous. So, in the past, at least he's only in jail. In the past, he could lose his head or whatever, so he wouldn't be able to do it as directly. So anyways, there's lots of reasons why we can't get through to some people sometime, even though we can see the train wrecks coming. And that includes ourselves very often. Sometimes we have to almost delude ourselves with stories. We have to use forms of, style, humor, rhetorical devices, gestures, be very expressive. We have to be energetic and so on. I mean, think of think of what we have to do sometimes if somebody is asleep and the house is on fire, or they've or there's something very dangerous could be coming their way. We can't really reason with them. We have to just get in there, yell, and shake them and so on. And that's not about reasoning at that point. It's sometimes we have to use other forms to deliver the end result, right? Because once again, there's what we want to get to the delivery point. We want ourselves or others to take action which is beneficial for us or them as we perceive it. But very often, just the content is not enough. We have to use delivery forms for that content, for that end result. Yes, if we can get very close to understanding what somebody wants, in the story of the Irish sweepstake, we probably got a very good idea that that person who bought the Irish sweepstake wants the winning ticket. So we don't have to get into we don't have to do a whole stage performance to explain to that individual that, hey buddy, you've got the winning ticket. That's basically all you got to say. And right away, it's so clear what the want is, or the perceived want. Even if we don't have it exactly, we just know that it's a very, very strong want. And all we have to do is tell them that the want is fulfilled. And that's enough. But in many cases, it's much more complicated. In many cases, people don't believe. In many cases, people are counter to the belief. I mean, think of religiosity and political, sides that people take. I mean, sometimes there's no amount of telling them the sky could be falling, and they won't believe. So in these cases, we have to use a lot more than just facts. And this is where the delivery system comes in, and it's so important. So one of the prime ingredients, I would say, is becoming very confident in ourselves and becoming very confident in terms of why. To be very, very strong on our purpose. Like if we got a strong purpose, who is it? Viktor Frankl says, if we have a big enough why, we can bear almost any how. So, yeah, just a few comments on kick-ass confidence that I'm going to be talking about this evening, and how content is extremely important. But a lot of times we have to have the right delivery system for the content to even make it there. Otherwise, we just run it ashore or it sinks, and they waste a lot of our effort. So if you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share. And if you ring the bell up in the right corner, you'll get notification, because the Coffee Chat channel, you basically can't find it on the internet. Pretty much, it's completely obscured. There's a whole bunch of coffee chats, and originally my channel was called Flat Belly Steve, back when I had a flatter belly, and so it's just, you can't find it unless you type in Flat Belly Steve, or if you know the name of a title. But if you go looking for me, you can't find it. And of course, there's a lot more suppression going on now. I noticed recently, for example, at one time, my suggested videos on the side of my channel were things along the lines of what I was interested in. I like to watch car shows and certain occult, and I like to watch stuff like this, public speaking and what have you. And now what do I see? I see CNN, Fox News, CNBC or whatever, Global News. I don't know if it's the Young Turks or whatever. It's all just a bunch of phony, fake news people who pay for those things. So obviously they're getting promoted up to the top, and little folks like me are just relegated to the back benches, and therefore it's hard to find us. But if you ring the bell, apparently you'll get notification, and as long as I'm on YouTube, when I post a video. So anyways, great to see more people chiming in, more membership coming in. It's great, and hope to talk again soon. Bye for now.